Devaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Nectar of Instruction, verse 2. So we left at the description of Yogamaya and Mahamaya, and how if somebody is not in Yogamaya, not in the internal energy, he has to be in external energy, which is form. Now further, Prabhupada writes, indeed, all living entities within this material world are under the control of Mahamaya, whose business is to subject them to the influence of threefold miseries. So Mahamaya, whose business, whose service to Krishna is to subject all living entities, not just few, all of them, to the influence of threefold miseries. Now, we have all seen pictures of Mother Durga, right? She's always carrying a trident. So what is a trident? The trident represents threefold miseries. And these threefold miseries are Adhidevik Klesha, which is sufferings caused by the demigods. So Deva, Devik means by the Devas, such as droughts, earthquakes, and storms. Or could be like too much heat, too cold. It's all controlled by the Devas. Then the second is Adhidevik, and then is Adhibhautik. Bhautik means by other living entities. So suffering caused by other living entities like insects or enemies. So they also give us suffering. And on top of it, Adhi-atmik klesha. Now, one thing we understand, it's not adhyatmik. Adhyatmik means spiritual. Adhi means by the influence of, caused by somebody, or under, like Abhiyanta, junior engineer. So Adhi-atmik klesha. Adhi-atmik klesha is sufferings caused by one's own body and mind, such as physical and mental infirmities. So Adhidevik klesha is suffering caused by the demigods, so devas. Adhibhautik, given by others, like we are sitting in India nicely and mosquitoes start biting us and flies are bothering us. Adhibhautik. And other people, we are just driving on the street and somebody comes and hits our car. It's a Adhibhautik klesh. But because of that, our mind gives us problems. Adhi-atmik klesh. Or mind, or my own body. Now, how mind gives problem? We have nice neighbors, but my neighbor buys a nice car and he buys a Honda and I'm still driving Maruti. So just thinking of his Honda and I'm getting jealous of him and I'm getting disturbed. Has nothing to do with him saying or doing anything against me, but I'm getting disturbed. I'm sitting at my home and I hear of some bad news happening to my family members in India and I'm getting disturbed. It's a mind giving me miseries. So every living entity goes through this. Deva Bhutatma Hetava, the conditioned soul subjected to these three miseries by the control of the external energy, suffer various difficulties. So everybody in the material world has to go through these three miseries and the misery of birth, old age, disease, and death. So plenty of miseries, 7 kinds And still we think this material world is a place for enjoyment. How is it possible? The main problem confronting the conditioned soul is a repetition of birth, old age, disease. In the material world, one has to work for the maintenance of the body and soul. But how can one perform such work in a way that is favorable for the execution of Krishna consciousness? Now, in the material world, now to have a living, whether comfortable or to whatever extent, one has to work while going through all these troubles, 7 troubles. One has to go through this and still one has to make a living. That is even added misery to our life. So, but how can one perform such work in a way that is favorable for the execution of Krishna consciousness? That is the whole story. That's why Prabhupada gave such a background or a foundation of his purpose. Where is he getting to? And another thing to notice that in the material world, although we are suffering, but we have to work. Everybody is working. So where is the quotient of no activity in the spiritual world? Activity has to be there. Consciousness is, when the consciousness is not pure, we are working so hard. And when the consciousness becomes pure, how come no activity? There has to be pure activities. So spiritual world, so when they say Brahm Jyoti means just merge into light and no more work, that's not the spiritual world. That's not the topmost. So activities have to be there. When in material world, when we are bound, when we are conditioned, there are so many activities. So spiritual world also has activities. Further, Prabhupada writes, everyone requires possessions such as food, grains, clothing, money, and other things necessary for the maintenance of the body. But one should not collect more than necessary for his actual basic needs. One should not collect more than necessary. But how do we know what is necessary? As Mahatma Gandhi also said, there is plenty in this world for everybody's need, but not for everybody's greed. And because of greed, we collect. We not just collect more than what is necessary, we are ready to commit every kind of crime, to kill somebody, to cheat somebody, to collect more than what's necessary. That's the problem. If this natural principle is followed, there will be no difficulty in maintaining the body. And in fact, once Prabhupada said, there is so much vacant land in this world, so much, that an earth can produce to feed up to 10 times the population that we have right now. And that was maybe in early 70s, so maybe the population wasn't 8 billion. Maybe the population was 6 billion. But Prabhupada said, Mother Earth can easily produce 10 times, for 10 times population. But our problem is we don't know how to manage. Those who are rich countries, like America also did once, that it produced so much of grain, there was overproduction, and they just threw it in the ocean instead of giving it to poor and hungry people. They just threw it in the ocean because there would be so much of price decrease. They were afraid the economy will go crazy. And also Prabhupada said that every once in a while, pretty much every year, if we look at, a new country is formed. There, like a country is there, and then there will be breakup or partition, and a new country is formed. Now, when a new country is formed, there are border lines, boundaries between the two countries, and then some buffer zone they have to leave. So there's so much of buffer zone available with no crops are grown because they're two countries now. So this is the mismanagement. And this basically is because of greed. Further, Prabhupada says, according to nature's arrangement, living entities lower on the evolutionary scale do not eat or collect more than necessary. Lower on the evolutionary scale. Consequently, in the animal kingdom, there is generally no economic problem or scarcity of necessities. If a bag of rice is placed in a public place, birds will come to eat a few grains and go away. A human being, however, because he got highest on the evolutionary scale, he will take away the whole bag. He will eat as all his stomach can hold and then try to keep the rest in storage. According to scriptures, this collecting of more than necessary atyahar is prohibited. Now the entire world is suffering because of it. Now, how to live in this material world, suffering all these miseries, but still trying to make sure we become eligible to go back to the spiritual world, from Mahamaya to go under the control of Yogamaya. We have to develop the qualities that are necessary for that. Those qualities we can develop only, of course, there also we struggle, Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jivva Vegam, Udarapas Vegam. There we are struggling. But while struggling, if we are still trying, and now there are more issues that we have to work on. So first is, as Rupa Goswami says, atyahar. So collecting more than necessary. Not just, Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually explains it, not just about eating. Eating is ahar, but to gratify the senses more than what is necessary, that's also atyahar. So that is prohibited. So one should not do that. Because this greed, first we will commit sinful activities for this atyahar, greed, to collect more than necessary. And then, obviously, then we'll show or we'll prove that we have no faith in the Lord. The Lord will provide, but we have no faith. So atyahar, this greed is definitely a big issue. And then for atyahar, what do? Collecting and eating more than necessary also causes prayas or unnecessary endeavor. That's also a problem, because to do atyahar, to do collection of more than what is required, we have to do extra endeavor, extra effort. And this we can see in today's world. People are working crazy 10, 12, 14, 16 hours a day. For what? Just to get more and more and more. And of course, it doesn't mean we become lazy. That's not the point. We have to work. But if by working bare minimum number of hours, Bare minimum means whatever the job requires. If it's a job 8 hours a day, we have to work, we work. But not to impress the boss and to do overtime. We work and work and work and we forget about our sadhana. And it takes a toll on our health also. By God's arrangement, anyone in any part of the world can live very peacefully if he has some land and a milk cow. That's all he needs. There is no need for man to move from one place to another to earn a livelihood. And definitely not to move from India to America to earn a livelihood. For one can produce food grains locally and get milk from cows. That can solve all economic problems. And actually, by working the way we do in the industries, living in the big cities, there's so much of pollution, so much of traffic problems, and working crazy number of hours, our health goes down. Health definitely takes a toll. So what is the point? When we don't even enjoy what we are making, we don't even live long enough. So what are we making all this money for? What are we earning all this money for? Fortunately, man has been given higher intelligence for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness, or the understanding of God, one's relationship with Him, and the ultimate goal of life, love of God. So actually, the intelligence that we have is to do this, to understand the relationship with God, to understand who is God, understand our relationship with God, and to achieve the ultimate goal of life, which is love of God. And if we don't do that, then what's the point in doing all this atyahar and prayas? It will only make us work like a donkey, and next life he'll become a donkey. Unfortunately, so-called civilized man, not caring for God realization, utilizes his intelligence for getting more than necessary and simply eat to satisfy the tongue. And there comes Jiva Vegam and Udarupastha Vegam. By God's arrangement, there is sufficient scope for the production of milk and grains for human beings all over the world. But instead of using his higher intelligence to cultivate God consciousness, so-called intelligent men misuse their intelligence to produce many unnecessary and unwanted things. Actually, we don't require all these things. But this is where marketing people come in. Marketing people, this is their job to create a necessity in the minds of people where actually there is no requirement. They make the advertisements are there, and so much of promotions are there that we think if I don't have this particular thing, my life is empty. It's just not worth living. Anything. There's so tons and tons of things goes on in name of advertisement and in the name of so-called comfortable living. Earlier, when computers came into picture, that time it was said, oh, if you have a laptop or if you have a computer, your life will be so simple, so smooth, that then all your work will be done in 2 hours or 3 hours, and you'll have rest of your life, rest of the time that you can enjoy with your family. Who can tell me that this is truth? Now computers are everywhere, and then now mobiles and smartphones. Oh, smartphone, you can be anywhere. And then the advertisements they show, oh, a person is sitting in a restaurant enjoying meal with his family, and instead of working in the office, and a phone call comes, he takes care of business on the phone, 5 minutes, and then he can enjoy time with his family. This is how they advertise it. Is it so? Really, is it so? No. And then more and more things. People will keep on inventing more and more things. And to get those things, one has to work hard to make money to get those things. And once he gets those things, there is no time to enjoy. Because either one will be always in anxiety or just more work. That's all. Thus, factories, slaughterhouses, brothels, and liquor shops. If people are advised not to collect too many goods, eat too much, or work unnecessarily to possess artificial amenities, they think they are being advised to return to a primitive way of life. Generally, people do not like to accept plain living and high thinking. That is their unfortunate position. And it is true. And look at the young generation now. If we tell them, oh, you don't need a smartphone, or you don't need the latest edition of iPhone or whichever phone, they'll go crazy. And I can easily vouch for all of us that we all grew up without even a phone in our house. Forget about smartphone. There were no smartphones that time. We didn't even have phone. We didn't even have TV in our house. And we all grew up, we all had fun. We all went out, played soccer, cricket, whatever, and came in home and did homework, ate our food, and went to sleep at whatever 8:39. By that time, we were in the bed. But now, smartphone, this, that gizmo, that gadget, everything has to be there. And if it is not there, this is what they think. They think they're being advised to return to a primitive way of life. Generally, people do not like to accept plain living and high things. The human life is meant for God realization, and the human being is given higher intelligence for this purpose. Those who believe that this higher intelligence is meant to attain a higher state should follow the instructions of the Vedic literatures. By taking such instructions from higher authorities, one can actually become situated in perfect knowledge and give real meaning to life. So, but being involved in atyahar and prayasa. Prayas means over endeavor. Some endeavor is definitely has to be there. It doesn't say we become lazy. And of course, if somebody comes to that kind of state that is only dependent on God and he just goes out for begging, God will provide. Krishna will provide for him. No doubt about it. But even for that, he has to go on. But even if we read about Ajagar Vritti from Lord Rishabhadev's example, Ajagar Vritti, we studied, it was what? A person just sits at one place and always completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. If Lord sends something for him to eat, he eats. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. If that kind of surrender is there, Krishna will take care. Even if the surrender is not there, Krishna is still taking care of all of us. But for sadhus, they can do that. We are not at that level. So we cannot artificially imitate anybody. But the point is, atyahar and this over endeavor. They have big time problems in the impediments in cultivation of bhakti. So we have to come back to simple living and high thinking. And Krishna does provide, no doubt about it. He's just going to test us, that's all. But he does provide. Okay, so I guess I can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments? Okay, I'll stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare